in 2019, NIC Bank merged with CBA Bank. They were supposed to pay stamp duty worth 350 million shillings, Mr. Speaker. Could that clarity explain whether the administrative action against the taxman is going to go beyond that so that the taxpayer can recover the 350 million? After the merger, the company that has come out is doing a lot of business, is a very rich company. Mr. Speaker, it belongs to the men of power of this country. And because of this house of equity, the house that advances the future of our children, children who are today, Mr. Speaker, dropping out of school because the father cannot buy uniform to go to class 7, Mr. Speaker, could the statement tell us that the money...
Senator Bone, what is your point of order, Senator Kajwa?
Mr. Speaker, I have tremendous respect for Senator Khalwale, but I went to medical school. If he has spent some time in business school, he would know there's a difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax evasion is a criminal offense. Tax avoidance is the reason why accountants go to school. Mr. Speaker, before Senator Khalwale imputes improper motives on commercial private interests operating,
let the senator make his point.
Operating in a free market economy, Mr. Speaker, Senator Khalwale needs to be careful so that if he's going to call for investigations, it should be for tax evasion and not tax avoidance, which is a forte of professionals. And Mr. Speaker, he should also reflect on the case of Donald Trump, who for a long time never filed tax returns despite making profits. And he should also reflect on the tax returns of the gentlemen and women in the Kenyan cabinet who are all millionaires, dollar millionaires, and yet they have no tax returns to show.
Proceed, Senator Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what is irritating the Senator of Homa Bay. When I talk about men of power, I know that he's none of them. And if he's hand holding for somebody, please, whoever gave you the brief to hold for them, tell them to mark who he's speaking. When you talk about challenging me and about qualifications of medical school and going to learn about taxes, you know that in this system and the students are here. The students who go to medical school are the ones who are at the top of the range in mathematics. The one in taxes, there are people who scrap through with the D+ and things like that. Please keep us away from it.
Senator
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very important issue.
You are not addressing the Senator of Homa Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
When you're up making your contribution, you address the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, he was... Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, he was challenging a street fighter for a street fight. Mr. Speaker, this is not a laughing matter. Stamp duty is a must. And because my good younger brother came in late, the question is just asking, why are you exempting certain people? And I'm innocently writing on it and saying, even as you give us that answer, how about this straightforward money that we know that took place in 2019? The two banks are known. One was worth 65 billion. The other one was worth 50 billion. The tax transfer of shares that they were supposed to pay, 350. Let them pay so that the children of Homa Bay can go to school. As you protect the rich will one day sacrifice you, but the poor will save you because they'll come and bury you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also support in part Senator Asigi's statement. Mr. Speaker, I would personally like to see a situation where tax exemption is given on merit. Because, Mr. Speaker, Senator Asige talked about people, with living disabilities. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to bring to the attention of this House, as a consideration of that statement is being made, that there is something that we call rare diseases, Mr. Speaker, where you find a patient with diseases whose treatment is not available locally, Mr. Speaker. And if you allow me, I can mention Gaucher's disease, Mr. Speaker, where patients, it's a very rare disease, but where patients, Mr. Speaker, need something that we call enzyme replacement therapy that is not available in the country, Mr. Speaker. And this is a disease where 1 year's treatment, Mr. Speaker, would cost as much as 30 million Kenya shillings, and it is a lifetime treatment. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I support Senator Asige in that we should not have a blanket rule forbidding exemption, Mr. Speaker, and that KRA should be very keen to see to it that exemptions, or there should be a law to see to it that exemptions are still allowed, but allowed on some very specific needs and on a need-to-need basis, Mr. Speaker. So about tax evasion, and I do not want to get into the debate between the bullfighter, who also says he's a street fighter, and Senator Kajwang of Homa Bay, but Mr. Speaker, tax evasion is something that no one should ever allow in this country, Mr. Speaker. But as far as rare diseases, people living with disabilities are concerned, Mr. Speaker, I think it would be very important that the window of exemption be retained. And so I support partially, but tax evasion is a no-no. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to make some comments. It looks like KRA they don't have a system where they can verify those who qualify for tax exemptions. In fact, the proposal is KRA and the Council for persons with disability need to work very closely to ensure they have a system to verify who really is a person with disability, so that those who have challenges, those people with disability, get the identification card, so that people don't go to Kirinyaga Street and get fake cards, apply for exemptions, and they qualify. And then at the end of the day, those who really deserve, those who are persons with disability, are punished for reasons that they don't know. And what is also very important, Honorable Speaker, is KRA, they have a lot of resources. They need to put in a good system where they'll be checking, they'll have checks and balances, and then our brothers and sisters who apply for tax exemptions are given, and proper registration. I know a few months ago, the Council for Persons with Disability went across the country to register persons, BWDs. So that's why this issue of a blanket suspension of tax exemption should not arise, because there are systems in place. If possible, they can integrate the systems of the two organizations so that at least they have it. And what happens also, Honorable Speaker, is when you apply for tax exemption, then it is you who is, say you are buying a car and you want to be exempted from paying taxes. You should be the person or close family relative who are using the vehicle or whatever with yourself. Honorable Speaker, this is a good statement, and the committee should pursue it to ensure that our brothers and sisters are not penalized for no reason. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The next statement, Senator David Wakoli.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53, 1, to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Information, Communication and Technology on the routing of international gateway tariffs by mobile telecommunication firms and mobile service providers. In the statement, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the safety of consumers' data, highlighting the reliability of the telecommunication systems in withstanding attacks such as hacking, denial of service, and spying by individuals and governments. 2, furnish the Senate with an updated report of all calls made locally and internationally, indicating the chargeable rates. 3, state measures, if any, that the telecommunication firms have established to counter the challenges inhibiting traffic calls, resulting to artificially high prices. 4, state action plans, if any, that the telecommunication firms have implemented to ensure liberalization of international gateways and secure bandwidth access in encouraging competition and global information society. 5, provide a list of all licenses not subjected to the price cap condition filed with the Communication Authority, indicating charges to the existing tariffs and terms and conditions applicable, excluding special offers and promotions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next, Senator Johannes Mwaruma. The statement is deferred. Senator Hamida Kibwana, I'm informed that she's nominated Senator Tabitha Maureen to see the statement on her behalf. Proceed, Senator Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the state of the nut industries in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an updated list of the areas under the nut farming in Kenya, outlining strategies, if any, to facilitate access to finance and markets for smallholder nut farmers and processors. 2, outline measures, if any, to enhance the production, processing, marketing, and export of nuts, stating the steps the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development is undertaking in ensuring that the process is environmentally and socially sustainable. 3, state initiatives and programs in place to attract foreign investment into the nut industry, detailing ways to improve the marketing and distribution of nuts domestically and internationally. And 4, expound on the legislative gaps required to align the industry with the changing needs and circumstances globally, so as to ensure the processing and value addition of nuts carried out efficiently and sustainably. Senator Hamida Kibwana, MP. Second statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the tax incentives available that support climate change programs in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline the tax incentives in Kenya that support the country's effort in addressing the climate change, providing a breakdown of the incentives mainly supporting private sector investment in renewable energy developing in Kenya. 2, appraise the Senate on the effectiveness of the tax policies in encouraging the uptake of renewable energy technology, stating whether they are aligned to Kenya's national climate change strategy. 3, spell out measures currently in place to ensure that revenue generated from carbon taxes is channeled towards climate change programs, indicating the total amount disbursed in the last 5 years. 4, state efforts in ensuring that the tax policies do not create unintended consequences negatively affecting the most vulnerable groups in the country, outlining strategies to ensure the tax policies are flexible enough to to accommodate emerging technologies and changing global circumstances. And 4, state measures, if any, to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the tax regime in supporting climate change programs, detailing how the information will be used to inform the future policy decisions. Senator Hamida Kibwana. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okeyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to comment on the statement on the state of nut industry in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I'm very aware that agriculture was one of our priorities as we campaigned in trying to make it favorable for the people, and in this case I want to highlight the women and young people. The nut industry as it is, especially from your county, Mr. Speaker, Kilifi, the cashew nut farming in that area is largely concerned because it involves women and young people. Most of the women have been affected because they're the ones who are involved in sorting, and the young people are working on the plant machineries. So in as much as we want to look at the other issues of making our nut competitive among other countries, because currently I also note that our counterparts, Tanzania, are the highest producer of nuts in the region, and Kenya, as we work closely to meet them in that position, we also need to give consideration to the people who are involved in this sorting and picking of the nuts. People largely relied on the nut as a source of income. We have women who thought migrating from the different areas they were in was going to make their lives better. Unfortunately, they are now not even able to support themselves. The factories in those places are not offering competitive prices, or if at all they are being paid, they are being paid very meager salaries, which cannot even support their children to go to school. We are also encouraging young people to engage in agriculture, but if the agriculture sector is dominated by such kind of effects we are seeing, then it will definitely push young people away from agriculture. So I surely want to support the concerns raised by Senator Hamida in this statement, but also encourage that we look at the people who are involved in this sector away, not just concentrating on the companies that are competing in this, because we have had very many adverse effects on those people who are in this nut industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundigi.
Bwana Speaker, makandamia katika Embu, jimbo ndogo la Manyata, jimbo ndogo la Runyenje, makadamia ni mingi, watu wengi wanapanda nyingi sana kwa sababu ni kama ndio tunapata hela nyingi. Kwa hiyo mimi naunga mkono tuangalie vile kutafanywa ndio mkulima aweze kuwa akifaidika, kwa sababu katika Mboma saa hii bei ni ya chini sana, na wakati watu kutoka nje walikuwa nunua samani ilikuwa toka kama kilo moja shilingi 100 na kitu, lakini sasa unakuta mkulima analima lakini anauza kama shilingi 30, ananunua shilingi 40. Kwa hiyo sasa kama kuna uwezekano ni wale watu walikuwa nunua samani bila kuangalia mambo ya wale watu wako Kenya. Kuna matajiri wako Kenya walitoa pesa nyingi, na ikawa sasa mkulima kutoka nje, mtu wa kutoka nje hawezi kupata nafasi ya kuja kununua, sasa ikawa na shida. Kwa hiyo sasa mimi naunga mkono kama hiyo mambo inaweza kuondolewa, ndio iwe soko uhuru, kila mtu aweze kulima na auze vile anataka, na pia watu wa kutoka nje wakumbaliwe kukuja Kenya kununua hizo vitu. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Kenywa.
Asante Bwana Speaker. Ni vizuri ukweli usemwe, kwa sababu ukiangalia kama vile kulingana hiyo taarifa kuhusu karanga, unapata ya kwamba si karanga peke yake Bwana Speaker, lakini ukiangalia mazao yote hapa nchini Kenya, ukulima hujatutilia maanani inavyofaa. Sisi tunaongea kuhusu mazao ya biashara peke yake, mfano kitu kama pareto na mazao yale mengine, lakini mazao ambayo yanaweza kutumika hapa nyumbani hatujatilia mkazo. Kitu ambacho tunaongea sana, utasikia tukisema kuhusu mpunga, utasikia tukisema kuhusu mahindi, lakini mimea ile mingine kama vile karanga, korosho, Bwana Spika, hata viazi ukitembea Nyandarua unapata hiyo hatuitilii maanani kama serikali. Kwa hivyo tunapaswa kuitilia maanani kwa sababu itatusaidia na sisi kama Kenya Kwanza, kwa sababu tumesema ni mpaka tulete chakula kiwe ni kitu ambacho hakitakosa, na itawezekana tu ikiwa tutatilia maanani kitu inaitwa ukulima, Bwana Spika. Vile vile Bwana Spika, kulingana na taarifa ile nyingine iliyotajwa, kulisemekana ya kwamba mazingira yetu tayari imeharibika sana. Lakini kwa semekana ya kwamba ni mpaka kutafutwe njia mbadala ya kuweza kulinda mazingira yetu. Bwana Spika, ukitembea kama juzi tu iko taarifa iliyokuwa imeletwa katika jumba hili kuhusu miti ya mimbuyu ambayo watu wanakata, lakini wanapokata wanaambiwa kwamba waangalie mazingira. Lakini Bwana Spika, hata ijapokuwa utaambia hawa watu waangalie mazingira, ni mpaka waambie baada ya kuchunga hii miti watasaidika vipi, na wanategemea ile miti wakikata wanaweza kupata afueni kwa sababu wanalipwa pesa wakikata ile miti. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, vile ambavyo tunapaswa kuwa tukifanya kamati ambazo zitakayopelekea hizi taarifa, waangalie mambo haya kwa kindani ndio tuweze kupata suluhu la kudumu. Tusiwe tu Bwana Spika ni kuja katika jumba hili tunaongea alafu hatufanyi chochote tu, jambo letu tunakuwa ni kuongea. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, ni ukulima wote tuweke mkazo, na tukiwekea mkazo Bwana Spika itakuwa inasaidia kizao hiki tulichonacho na kizazi kijacho Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo tusiwe tu ni watu wa kuongea bila tukija hapa tukipatia katika kamati inakuwa ni jambo limeongewa, mwaka ujao tunaongea jambo hilo. Bwana Spika, naomba ya kwamba kamati zitakazopewa zishughulikie kwa undani na waweze kuleta suluhu la kudumu Bwana Spika. Asante.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think agriculture is actually our mainstay and the driver of our economy. However, for a long time it has been neglected, and all the focus has gone to cash crops like coffee and tea, and food crops like maize only. However, this country has a diversity of food production and products of like cashew nuts, livestock, herds and skins. These things like small-scale farmers that produce diversity of food like potatoes and all these things have actually not been given much attention. And therefore I think that's actually why not to be able to meet our economy to grow. And as you are aware, this country, 75% of the country is actually arid and semi-arid. And you know, every region has its own products produced. Like you know, cashew nut has been produced in Clivy and those coastlines. Farmers like livestock, they keep in the asset areas. But however, the focus has already been neglected. And I think it's the high time that we need to grow and go back to the drawing board, so that at least for us to grow our economy, we need to have, you know, in the past there has been a lot of diversification in crop production. And the focus was not only on cash crop, but the food crop was being promoted, and other supplementary crops like cashew nuts and other food products and other cash crops was improved, like you know, perethrum and all these things. However, of late, the whole focus now has gone only on the maize production, tea and coffee, and I think this is not actually sustainable for this country economy, This is actually a middle level economic country. We need to go to diversify and to increase our source of revenue, and especially and also production of other cash crops and food crops, so that even sorghum can be grown anywhere. Today, as you are aware, this country actually is having a food scarcity and famine. But of course, every time we talk about food, we only talk about maize and rice and beans. Well, we can be able to feed our people with the other nuts, the potatoes, and all these things. So, something like korosho, or what we call cashew nuts, is a very nutritious product that can be even used for malnourished kids and mothers. Therefore, it's a high time I think we need to go back to our drawing board, so that we can be able to enhance and finance other crops and other production systems in different parts of this country. With those few remarks, I beg to support.
Senator Alan Chesang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this statement of cashew nuts. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have been trading, actually I've been buying cashew nuts from Tanzania and selling to international investors before. And I know how much, I know the price of cashew nuts, and I know how much revenue it can bring to our country. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we support this kind of, if you support our farmers to plant this kind of crops, it's going to change, it's going to bring revenue in our country. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, sir, one ton of cashew nuts in Tanzania is $4,600 as we speak. If the government will take this seriously, I'm sure even a ton of maize is not up to 4,600 US. So the kind of revenue it can bring to this country, if taken seriously, I'm sure it will support our farmers and support other crops as well. We have other crops like sunflower, and sunflower oil is very expensive and it's on high demand internationally, and it is something that the government should support. I also want to make a comment, Mr. Speaker, on the issuing of free sanitary towels. I support this motion.
Senator Chesang, you may not venture into those waters.
Okay.
We are yet to get to that business.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chute.
Shukrani sana Bwana Spika. Nimeshangaa sana kusikia Senator Mundigi akisema korosho ilikuwa inanunuliwa na zaidi ya shilingi 100, na leo, Bwana Spika, nimeshangaa sana kusikia inanunuliwa na shilingi 30 peke yake. Bwana Spika, Kenya Kwanza manifesto inasema itasaidia ukulima, na imeongelea sana juu ya ukulima. Saa hizi shida iko kwa Kenya. Mimi nimetoka boda, kaunti yangu ni boda ya Ethiopia. Ukulima Kenya imekwisha, ikakufa na ikazikwa, Bwana Spika. Saa hizi watu wako Kenya kutoka Marsabit kwenda Moyale wanapata chakula kutoka Ethiopia. Boda inaitwa Moyale. Bwana Spika, unga ya ngano ni bei nusu na bei ya Ethiopia leo. Unga ya mahindi hivyo hivyo, maharagwe hivyo hivyo. Ukiangalia boda yetu ya Tanzania, vitunguu inatoka Tanzania, viazi inatoka Tanzania, chakula nyingi inatoka Tanzania, nyingine inatoka Uganda.
What is your point of order, Senator Kenywa?
Kidogo Bwana Spika, Senator Chute ananikanganya, anasema ya kwamba Mondigi amesema kuhusu korosho. Na kama nimesikiza vizuri alisema kuhusu makadamia. Sasa ananichanganya. Sijui ni bei ya nini anataja, kama ni ya korosho ama ni makadamia, Bwana Spika.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Mahali mimi nimetoka hatuna korosho, hatuna makadamia, hatuna vitu kama hiyo. Kwa hivyo kama atanifunza ninafurahi sana. Akiniuliza mambo ya mbuzi, hata nikionja nyama ya mbuzi nitakwambia, hata bila kuonja, hata kunusa nitakwambia hii ni ngamia, hii ni mbuzi. Gavana Ali Roba atakuwa shahidi kwa hiyo. Kwa hivyo nimeshukuru amenieleza hiyo mambo, sijui kusema kweli. Basi Bwana Spika, ile shida tuko naye sana na ni mzuri watu wakiongea mambo ya korosho, makadamia, hizo vitu ukulima imekuwa na shida sana. Sasa zingine unaangalia shamba ya kahawa zote zimebadilishwa, imefanywa mahali ya biashara ya manyumba. Kahawa inaendelea kupotea, majani chai hivyo. Kwa hivyo ile shida tuko naye saa hizi, maziwa inatoka Uganda. Hii maziwa inatoka Uganda, haitoki Uganda. Maziwa inatoka huko Europe, inapitishwa ikiwa maziwa ya unga hapo, inapelekwa huko Kampala, wanaongeza maji, inaletwa hapa ni kama maziwa ya Uganda. Sasa ukulima yetu, si nimesema imezikwa. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, kamiti ambayo wanahusika na hiyo mambo ni lazima waangalie mambo vizuri na hatua kali ichukuliwe. Nimeshukuru sana, asante sana Bwana Spika.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute in this very important matter. I'm in the Committee of Agriculture, and I've been there in that committee even at the National Assembly for quite a number of years. The issue of macadamia is a very serious matter, and nuts generally. And korosho in particular is grown in the coastal areas and was largely grown through cooperatives. I know there is a very big effort to bring back this market. Private businessmen have come in, and fortunately brokers have really messed the industry. And by putting people into cooperatives, even marketing cooperatives of these nuts, which are very valuable in terms of rare minerals, rare vitamins, and are sold largely in Europe. You know, almost every flight has that nut, somebody chewing it there, and it is in tons if you see the marketing all over the world. The problem, and we must really look forward to solve, is how do we make the farmer benefit more than the brokers? How do we make this very valuable product, which is even grows naturally, is not sprayed, it has no herbicides, and is easily acceptable in the market? In fact, macadamia in particular helps with the heart, and a lot of old people in Europe are buying this because it has a special component of potassium which keeps the heartbeat strong and makes people live longer. So we really want to come up with a strategy, and agriculture has to be devolved completely to the counties. Agriculture has been devolved but has still been left in the national government. The budget has not gone to the counties. If these monies were to go to the governors, I am very sure they will come up with strong cooperatives, marketing systems, value addition chains, so that when the nuts leave here and go to the market abroad, the farmer benefits. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Next statement, Senator James Murango. That statement is deferred. Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of a sum of money out of the Equalization Fund and its application towards the service of the year ending 30th June 2023, to appropriate that sum for certain public basic services and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the Learners with Disabilities Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2023, a bill for an act of parliament to provide for the education of learners with disabilities, for the conduct of educational institutions for learners with disabilities, and for connected purposes.
Honorable Senators, we are going to reorganize the order paper today. We are therefore going to move straight away to order number 13. Clerk, can you call out that particular order?
Order number 13, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, resumption of debate.
Honorable Senators, we now resume debate on this motion, which was interrupted on Thursday, 2nd March 2023. I do therefore now call upon Senators to make their contributions to the motion. Senator Eddie Okech, MP, was on the floor contributing to this motion. Before interruption, he had a balance of 17 minutes. I'm informed he's not in the House, and therefore we shall move as per the queue on the request. Senator Chute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come from Marsabit County. We have wind power called Lake Turkana Wind Power in Marsabit. I think the largest wind power in Marsabit, in Africa. And in support of this bill, I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, our children in Turkana, a place called Sarima, which the offices of Lake Turkana are being operated from, the children living there have no clothes, no place to sleep, no food, no water, no survival at all. And if you look at the investors who invested in this Lake Turkana power, wind power, are mainly from abroad, either Europe or America. Mr. Speaker, the children who are in America, who belong to investors, are going to the best schools, are driving on the best roads, are eating the best foods, are going to the best hospitals, and are, in fact, enjoying everything that exists in this life. Mr. Speaker, the children from Sarima, which is in Lesami's constituency, are just human beings also. And they are not for a lesser God. They are human beings and they deserve to get what is rightfully theirs. This land initially belongs to the community. The community, this is a grazing land, is a land where they do their rituals. They have their celebrations in Sarima and its environs. And today, they have no place to graze, or to do their celebrations. Mr. Speaker, in support of this bill, I would like to say this. An investor will come from any place. He comes with his equipments, but the land belongs to the community, and the community are not benefiting from the land, the ancestors' land. They have lived on that land for many, many years. But what are they getting? Nothing. So this bill will help a young boy, a young girl who lives in Laisamis constituency to get to a better education with those funds and also get a better living. Mr. Speaker, we are even, I think I will bring a bill to this House that will even give the community shares percentage and also the county governments and the national government. Mr. Speaker, we also have a forest in Marsabit, beautiful rainforest in Marsabit. If you can remember, there was an elephant called Ahmed. He died in Marsabit and was brought to this museum here, museum in Nairobi. And you know, people in Marsabit are supposed to benefit from Ahmed the elephant. But we are not getting anything. That is our natural resources, Mr. Speaker. And if there is, this bill will go through, that means people in Marsabit can enjoy their natural resources also. Mr. Speaker, this bill will in fact make other investors who are going to come to any place to invest will know that there is something for the community when they are coming to invest, as opposed to what is happening now in a place like Marsabit. We are producing electricity, and the electricity comes to Nairobi, to being delivered to people in Nairobi. And in Marsabit, blackouts every night. So we are not getting what is rightfully ours. We don't have electricity to enjoy. The people here in Nairobi are enjoying this electricity, while people in Marsabit, children, women, are suffering. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Mutati.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity you have given me to support this bill. The matter of natural resources in this country is very sad because we even do not know all that we own. And in supporting this bill, I'll be pushing that if the government carries out a proper survey to map the resources available in this country. Just a few months ago, I don't know if you are aware that there's a gold rush in Busia. Some fellows struck gold and right now there's commotion on the ground. Everybody's rushing there. So I think we should not be discovering our minerals by chance. The counties need to be mapped in terms of resources and a proper regime put in place for exploiting those resources so that we can benefit from what is rightly ours. And these resources, and there's also neglect of resources, natural resources, like if I go back to my county of Busia, you'll find that we have extensive resources that are not tapped. For example, I don't know if you know that it's only in Busia that you can find ancient cave paintings in this part of the world. I think the next you have to go to either Namibia or somewhere. But these cave paintings are there neglected, no serious investment put into them to be able to benefit the country in terms of tourism circuit and stuff like that. So you also find that we have huge resources in Lake Victoria, which are neglected. We don't even have a Western Kenya tourism circuit that can really benefit
the economy of this country and the residents of those regions. So in standing up to support this motion, I'll also be saying that there are other resources that may not be natural in the sense of having been created by God, but they are natural in the sense of having been created by man. And I'm looking at issues like international borders. Extensive economic activities take place in these international borders, but you'll find that the host communities are neglected. For example, if I go back to my county, you'll find the local people being treated as smugglers, and the corporates enjoy the borderline as those ones who are doing legitimate business. So in supporting this bill, I say that it's important that the host communities be considered in terms of the benefit sharing and also the counties. But over and above that, we must have a proper resource mapping of this country so that we can know what is it that lies under our feet. We should avoid a situation like what has happened in Busia, whereby somebody randomly stumbles upon gold. Let us map our resources. Let us do what other countries have done so that we can be able to plan how to exploit these resources. And I support the proposal by Senator Chute that there needs to be a component, a mathematical framework of how to share these resources when they are found. With those few remarks, I stand to support.
Senator Lominan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. In the county I come from, Mr. Speaker, we have innumerable resources that I cannot even count it. But the one that is obvious that everybody knows is crude oil that is there, and they have discovered and are still going on to drill more than 400 wells. There is also gold, Mr. Speaker, in Turkana and these other counties. There is also sand. Sand in counties like Marsabit, counties like Turkana, West Pokot. There's so much sand. And when I see Fioco's lorries carrying sand from Machakos to Nairobi, and the way it is so just available in Turkana County, I feel sympathy. I sympathize those people from lorries. The other minerals, Mr. Speaker, the biggest which competes with oil, and I think it is even topsoil, the issue of solar. Solar in Turkana, even if you do a good survey, Mr. Speaker, you will find sand in Marsabit, in Turkana, it's not the level it is now in Nairobi. So I think it is becoming lower because it is like now 42 degrees centigrade, meaning it's like now it is lowered, which becomes too hot. So when we harvest and tap this solar, you will realize the cost of electricity will be very cheaper in this nation of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, one thing that we realized, and this is just a live case example, in a well that called Ngamiawan, the non-international well called Ngamiawan, which produces highest volume oil, the children and the people from that well, a village called Nakuklas, are still begging for water, are still begging for food, are still begging for clothing, are still begging for even drugs. If they can even say that someone is sick and he needs aspirin or Panadol, they are not available. And this is a reality, Mr. Speaker. So when we say, Mr. Speaker, I think God was perfect to create this world, and He did not make any mistake to disadvantage any area. The only God, what God did, He was very diplomatic in a way that some mirrors are above the ground, others are below the ground. For example now, farmers, maize, potatoes, or whatever. And for us, in the pastoral areas, we are advantaged with the provision of livestock. After the grass are offered, there is gold, there is oil, there is water underneath. And so people do ignore and have negligence for these resources. The reason why I'm saying this, it pains me, Mr. Speaker, to find an international resource like oil, a multinational organization like Talo comes and it is given a contract to go explore and drill oil in northern Kenya, in Turkana area, only to deny the local community the opportunity it deserves. This is what we call local contents, Mr. Speaker. Local contents are opportunities that derive from that organization, from the contract, from the job opportunities, from administration. So whatever accrues from that resource like gold, the community, the local community are the first to be given priority to benefit and so that we avoid Britain, France, and whatever they come from benefiting. The local community, because they have been protecting. If you see, Mr. Speaker, the definition of fossil, you will find it's a piece of wood or bone that has changed into stone. So, though you find that the bones that are in these counties for our grandparents or ancestors or the plantations there, maybe I can say this is the things that have changed to be oil. And people, the local community are supposed to take advantage of that. It beats logic, Mr. Speaker, to find that the multinational organization, as like, for example, Talo, drills soil, and then it takes it to transport to Lamu, and it sells to a known company. I know it, like Chem Limited Company, which costed the government got 1.2 billion, and we had the act, the bill of energy bill, and what we agreed that the county government will get out of the revenue that the national government gets. The county government gets 20%, and the local community, which is just access to the oil well, gets 5%, and then the national gets 70%, 75%. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, what has happened, we agreed, we signed this House, National Assembly, passed that law. It was signed. What makes me perplexed, Mr. Speaker? The oil was transported to Lamu, it was sold, and it is now 3-4 years since the oil was transported. The community is still waiting up to now, and I have sanctioned the government. Am there any multinational organization that intends to drill? They are saying, before you drill, even in our own saying, you cannot take a girl, a beautiful girl, without a 1 kilogram of sugar, a 1 kilogram of tobacco, and a e-goat. So what the community are asking, does it make sense for you to drill another more than 300 wells of oil, yet you have not even given 5%, even not even 5% given to the community? It is not possible. Even God himself will not allow that, Mr. Speaker. And even you, as with due respect, you cannot allow. What we are saying, give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and God what belongs to God. Give the local community what they deserve. Give the national government, because national government involves these other counties. The county that finds resources is available. It's not. I mean, they only consider. They consider all of the other counties. So we are saying, Mr. Speaker, whatever it belongs to the local community, because that's the only golden opportunity. If people have produced oil, I mean coffee, produce sugarcane, produce tea, you know the condition, the law that has been made there, and people will not take those profits and revenue for granted. We have been provided every time when the drought is there, Mr. Speaker. Every time we cry in this house, we say, oh, we have hunger, we are thirsty, we are what? You know, yet there are organizations that make resources, make revenues, make a lot of money out of the resources we have in those counties. Yet the locals do not benefit. Speaker, am I wrong to say that is robbing the dead? Because those people are needy. You come, you take their gold, you take their minerals, you take their water, you take their gypsum, you take their whatever, and then you leave them with nothing, not even 5 liters of water. It depends, Mr. Speaker, if I represent such people. So what we are saying, Mr. Speaker, this law is very important, that we make clear the advantage, the revenue. If the revenue, if the local community is 10, let them get that 10%. If the county, 20. Because why we are putting 20 per county? Because, for example, my county has 6 constituencies. So when we give 20, it means the other constituencies will also benefit. But the host community, a local community that is proximate near to the well, only gets 5%. Mr. Speaker, up to now, we have gotten nothing. So I really support this bill, and I want this bill, Mr. Speaker, this is why we are here. We represent our communities, so that no one can change them, so that they get their rights, their constitutional right, because it is in Article 43, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for those few remarks, I support this bill. Thank you.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the operative word in this bill by Senator Mungatana is sharing. I want to support him for this flow of thought because really this is the backbone of our constitution. We amended our constitution so that all the communities of Kenya could share the commonwealth of the country and move at the same pace, almost. So Senator Mungatana has gone slightly below and said, okay, it's all right for us to share commonwealth of the state amongst counties, but how about the things that are found locally and naturally? And he has arranged his thoughts very well. In his mind, he's saying, let there be a sharing committee at the county, let there be a sharing committee at the community. The only thing I want to add for that, in support of this motion, Mr. Speaker, is that below the committee, in areas where we have already done land adjudication, like Ekolomani, where there is gold, Shinyalu, where there is gold, Lurambe, where there is gold, land adjudication is already, and Gem in Siaya, land adjudication has already been completed. So, below the community, you must have the landowner. Because you might find that in a particular piece of land, the gold is coming from that particular piece of land. So as we share, we should not just assume that all the gold should be shared by the community. We should reserve something for the owner of the land, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that improvement on the structure of sharing of this wealth, may I remind Kenyans who are following this debate that just like I have said, this was the intention of the Constitution, this will not be the first fund that we are subjecting to sharing. We already know, Mr. Speaker, devolution is about sharing devolved funds. Mr. Speaker, we know that CDF is sharing of funds that go through our 290 constituencies. And what's more, the sharing of bursaries is again this very, very principle. So I would appeal to all colleagues, members of parliament, and eventually the National Assembly that we all stand behind this motion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, speaking generally, minerals have become a curse in Africa. If you look at your breaking news now, our armed men and women are in the DRC trying to maintain a ceasefire. But less than 1 hour ago, it has broken down in Kivu town. They are now killing each other. Reason? Natural resources. So instead of the resources of Africa, helping Africa, helping Africans, helping the people of DRC, our resources have become a curse. Yes, most
wish to be informed, Senator Boni.
Most obligatory, Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, you know when Senator Boni Galwale speaks, he is a man of wisdom. And some of us, when we were growing up, we used to be inspired by the fiery and vibrant debate on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker,
are you saying you've stopped being inspired now that you've grown up?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm now more fired, not even inspired and fired. Mr. Speaker, maybe to inform him, because I've seen him indicating that this is about the minerals, but when you look at the clause 3, it talks about that this act shall apply to the following natural resources. I know he interchangeably used the word minerals and sunlight, water resources, forest biodiversity, and genetic resources, which I think he should inform us more because he's a doctor, wildlife resources, industrial fishing, and wind. So that is what this bill applies to, or the act, if passed into law, will apply to. But I think there is already a mining act in place, so maybe that's where I wanted to inform the good doctor and the bullfighter.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the point of information, but you're just running ahead of me. I'm just at the beginning of my debate. You got me when I was talking generally about these natural resources, and in this case, our minerals. We should refuse as leaders of Africa that because of failure of government, failure of legislation to create laws that can provide on how people can easily share benefits, we should refuse to fail in that particular endeavor so that our people already have a tool which they can use to share instead of killing each other. Mr. Speaker, allow me to speak about gold. When I see some of our children in Shinyalu constituency, Lurambi, and the Kolomani and Game constituency in Siaya drop out of school, I feel very disgusted. Because succeeding governments, right from the colonial government, the government of President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, 1963, 15 years, the government of Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, 24 years, the government of Mwai Kibaki, 10 years, government of Uhuru, 10 years. They have deliberately refused to unlock the gold mining economy. Refused. Because the studies are there, it is documented that the gold deposits in the Kakamega belt, we call it the Lirambi belt, is worth 200 billion. 200 billion. How a government can be looking at that and it doesn't want to unlock, I don't understand. And to unlock, they are supposed to do only the simplest of the things. What they did in Turkana. They invited foreign investors, Tulo One, and they started exploiting gold. You just need to do that in the Liranda belt, and the lives of our people will change instantly, and the GDP of our county will shoot up, and by association, the GDP of the Republic. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that because people know the value of gold and they know how to identify gold, they are not waiting for any investor. They are going down there themselves. Consequences, Mr. Speaker, the mining is demanding the lives of our youth. Every weekend, I bury a youth in Kakamega. 2 weeks ago, my counterpart, Governor Barasa, was there, I was not there. I was on national duty up here. He buried 5. A village just wiped out 5 children. The week before, I had buried a father and his firstborn. And 5 years ago, I'll share with you, Mr. Speaker, I decided to be curious. I said, how can people die out of gold mining and they continue going back? So I went to the home in Shichinji of one of the people who had perished, Mr. Speaker. And when I reached there, I wanted somebody who I could give my so-called sadaka. And I found the brother of Fau. The youth who had died was called Fau. The brother of Fau was missing in the home. So I asked them, where is he? They said he went behind here. So I followed. Fau, where are you? I found Fau had gone back into the same pit. I found Fau's brother, Fau was dead, had gone back into the same pit to extract more soil so as to sell in order to defray funeral costs. I decided on that day that today I will join Fau's brother in the pit, and I went down 120 feet and I helped him. We scooped the soil and we were again lifted out to make my statement that I care. And when you are down there, those 120 feet, you are a millisecond away from death. That is how our people are neglected. Mr. Speaker, I urge President William RUTO, who knows these things, and he has already in his first 100 days come to Kakamega and spoken to the Riranda gold mine to move and move with speed. Mr. Speaker, there is something gold and my brother Cherege, now there I go. There is something called wind power. Lake Turkana wind power, Mr. Speaker, produces green energy, 310 million megawatts. And if you go to Marsabit in the neighborhood and Turkana itself, Mr. Speaker, children are walking without clothes, leave alone shoes. They have pot bellies because of infestation by worms. Mr. Speaker, they drop out of school. Mr. Speaker, the youth go doing cattle rustling to raise an income when they produce 310 megawatts. What is the natural resource here? It is the modern natural resource called carbon credit. There is carbon credit worth millions of dollars in those windmills, which the government should structure. The first world country that contributes to negative climate change by releasing carbon emissions from their factories, according to the United Nations, it is signed and agreed that they must pay back to any activity in the world anywhere that adds to positive climate change, i.e. giving green energy like what happens in Marsabit and Turkana. So the government should be organized. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs should be up to it. It should work with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment to ensure that we harvest our carbon credits and they go to Marsabit and Turkana and other areas where we are producing power from windmill. And as if that is not enough on carbon credit, Mr. Speaker, I come closer to home. We have Kakamega Forest. Thanks to carbon credit, the UNDP 1.5 weeks ago was in Kakamega launching the fencing of the entire forest because they realized the importance of carbon credit. The process was being presided over by the ambassador of Japan. And I listened to him. He spoke for around 40 minutes. And in 40 minutes, he said generalities upon generalities, only to mention in one little word, Mr. Speaker, the word carbon credit. Because they would love that they bury it in the sand, people to start rejoicing that their fence has been fenced, not knowing that the reason for fencing that forest was actually to secure carbon credits for the local community. Mr. Speaker, having said that, allow me, and I hope the young dynamics chair who is now in place will not throw me out. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, senators, we have a job to do. In fact, when I see the little differences that are responsible for the other side having no senator in this house, I feel very small. We are really small. Because this is the chamber that should create awareness, that should bring the fear of the Lord in the heart of President RUTO, never to repeat what the handshake government did. I wish they were here. I would have told them that the Controller of Budget has today told Parliament that she was forced, Margaret Nyakango, she was forced by the handshakers to release 15 billion shillings so that they could come and rig elections to defeat us. Having eaten our 15 billion, they don't want to sit here and debate so that we rectify the mess that we have thrown our country in. If we are here so that we have an opportunity to force the Controller of Budget, Mr. Speaker, to give us 25 billion shillings, then I would rather I don't participate in that election myself. I'm proud of young women like Senator Tabitha Karanja. Why can't people who want to be presidents hire Karanja? They sit with her. They use her golden mind that is able to convert alcohol into a multi-billion venture. And I don't know what has become of our courts, Mr. Speaker. Our courts should never be allowed to harass business people. When a business person is behind on paying tax, you reschedule the tax which is due. The moment you close, it is equal to killing the proverbial goose that was laying golden eggs. This is the new conversation we should be involved in, not who is the leader of the majority, who is the chief whip, costing as well. No, that debate is meaningless to this republic. If tomorrow you tell me that I have served the country as majority whip for 3 years, let Cherargei take over, I'll gladly say, I did my bit. You fight over it until you want to cripple Parliament. Doesn't make sense. Mr. Speaker, but this is Kenya. The future is bright. Mr. Speaker, I listened to you when you are speaking from your seat, and I know, unlike many youth who are involved in drama, which I don't see you doing even on your social media, you are good material. You are good material for our youth when your time is up, and I know your time is now. And I celebrate you all the time. I know you don't know. I have a photograph of 2 little girls. I don't know their parents, which I have treasured. One girl, she's carrying her shopping. And she's running and screaming, but she's not dropping her shopping. The other girl, you are with her. I've saved that photograph. When you went into that war. That is the material we want the Kenyan of the future to be made of. What funny people. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you very much, Senator Kalwale. Senator Joseph Joe Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Sitting here this afternoon, we have been able to learn a lot of things, and that one of them being that Senator Boni Khalwale, the bullfighter, can also be a gold digger in the real meaning of the word. And we have also, no, he said that he joined one Fazul's brother to those yards. And he has also been able to let us know that secretly he admires Senator Tabitha Karanja. I hope he only admires her business acumen. Mr. Speaker, having said that, allow me to support this natural resources benefit sharing bill because, Mr. Speaker, some of the things that are happening in our counties, especially regarding some foreign-owned companies that are doing business in our counties, Mr. Speaker, In my county of Murang'a, for example, we have Kakuzi Limited, which is a well-known company, Mr. Speaker, and which has been able to actually visit a lot of injustices, historical injustices to our people in Murang'a, Mr. Speaker. A company which, though domiciled in Murang'a County, and though benefiting from the hospitality of our people in Murang'a, Mr. Speaker, remains very hostile to our people. That sometimes they cannot even allow a footpath across some of the areas, Mr. Speaker, making the residents to cover long distances trying to avoid anything Kakuzi, Mr. Speaker. And this is something that should not be allowed to continue happening in this day and age, Mr. Speaker. You go to Kakuzi once again, and I have nothing against Kakuzi, Mr. Speaker. It's an investor, and we really want to encourage foreign investors. But, Mr. Speaker, most of the land that they are occupying is not being used for any productive use, Mr. Speaker. That in the background of a county where we have very many landless people, people who are very hardworking, but people who do not have land where they can farm and maybe, Mr. Speaker, make their daily bread. This is something that should not be allowed to continue happening, Mr. Speaker. I am not here to prosecute Kakuzi, but I'm here to support this motion because Kakuzi benefits from our natural resource, that resource, and that is land. In the thousands of acres, Mr. Speaker, and most of the land, like I've said, is not in any use. What they have done is that they have gone along major roads, Mr. Speaker, grown some trees so that no one is able to see what happens. The vast parcels of land, the vast land lying in there not being used, Mr. Speaker. And this is something that should be looked into. When we talk about benefit sharing, and I'm glad that Senator Mungatana brought this bill, Mr. Speaker. You know, recently we went to South Sudan for East African Games, Mr. Speaker, and we got to understand that in that country, no foreigner will be allowed to own a company that does not have a local shareholding, Mr. Speaker. And I think although there are many things that we may not like about Southern Sudan, especially their voodoo law, where it is their word against you as if you are a foreigner, but I think this is something that we can borrow. That for anyone, those companies, Kakuzi, Del Monte, those big companies, those that operate farms, tea farms in Kericho and other counties, Mr. Speaker, that they should cede some shares to the locals, county government, locals, so that they can also benefit from these vast natural resources, Mr. Speaker. And so I think that is something that we should consider, that any foreign investor, though they hide under the excuse that they are creating employment, yes, which they do, but their benefits far much outweigh the exploitation that they do to our people. And so this benefit sharing, Mr. Speaker, should be something that we should institutionalize, something that we should legislate on, so that our people stop being exploited by these companies, Mr. Speaker. The other thing, while talking about Kakuzi, and in my county I have two big investors, Mr. Speaker. We have Del Monte and we have Kakuzi. I may not have very many problems with Del Monte because most of the land that they have is under use and they are employing very many people. And Del Monte ceded some land recently to our county. My major fight is with Kakuzi, Mr. Speaker. Large tracts of land, and I know I'm repeating this, unused, unutilized. Hostility to the locals, Mr. Speaker. There is one particular society that was called Mwambu Farmers Society. A group of poor people that had some land somewhere in the middle of the farms that are owned by Kakuzi, and who were forced to move to a place called Dagera, Mr. Speaker. And the agreement then, back in 1988, was that they be compensated for the school that they had built, the cattle dip, churches, and those public amenities and facilities, Mr. Speaker, which Kakuzi has never done, and which Kakuzi should be forced to should be made to do. And Mr. Speaker, when this compensation is being made, it should be in what we call net present value. The value, because the value of $1 million in 1988, Mr. Speaker, was much, much higher. And that is why we should, the people of Mwambo, the people of Dangera, should be compensated using the net present value, or the present value of money as of today, Mr. Speaker, because that is an injustice. We have pupils. Currently, you know that in our schools, in every other country, in every other part of the country, Mr. Speaker, we have problems with infrastructure because of junior secondary school that has been domiciled in primary schools. We would need this money so that the Angera Primary School, Mr. Speaker, the amount that was supposed to be paid by Kakuzi to them, it may be utilized, Mr. Speaker, to put up the necessary infrastructure in that particular school. And other places also, we have a Chanjiro Farmers Cooperative, Mr. Speaker, also neighboring Kakuzi, where these historical injustices have been visited on our people. And so I stand to support that the benefits accruing from exploitation of natural resources in our counties should be shared with the locals. And Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, and I have nothing against Kakuzi, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support that bill, that natural resources should be shared, even as I prepare to bring also a motion or a bill here about a Nairobi Water Company, Mr. Speaker, which gets water from Murang'a County, Dakaine, for free, but they sell it. That is also something that we must deal with. They cannot get things, a resource like that for free from Murang'a, and our people of Murang'a still don't have enough water for drinking and also irrigation, Mr. Speaker. And these are things that we think we should include in this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, I support, even as I call upon the companies to be fair to the communities that have hosted them. So, Mr. Speaker, I support that bill, and thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. The last speaker, Senator Murgo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also give my thoughts in addition to my colleagues. Natural resources are things that are very important in every area and to the communities in those areas. But some of the would-be advantages to the people whose land have those deposits have been taken advantage of mostly because of lack of policy that is clear and protective for the advantage and benefits of the communities. And so there needs to be clear policy from both national governments and the county governments so that there is a clear-cut policy about the resources that are found in areas. And the second thing that I think should happen is also, as somebody, colleague shared, that there needs to be mapping, prior mapping, to know what exactly is where in every part of Kenya. Take gold, for example. People get just surprises with particles of gold floating here and there without much or no from a policy or mapping out by the central government or national government, and probably inherited in one way or the other by the county government, because county government may be new and may not have the capacity to really map out as to what is in their area. And so mapping out helps to be known nationally, and even as markets for investment are looked for, it should be clear as to what it is and to what extent and how much, so that it is known what kind of a person, what kind of an investor is looked for, because the mapping should guide clearly as to what is there. And then also an investment, every county should be looking for an investor, same as it should be in the with the national government. The national government should be looking for investors, so that they bring investors, and as they bring investors in, it is known what kind of an investor, and also what kind of place to go to, because there is a prior knowledge and handy knowledge existing within the systems and the governments, so that that investor is guided and directed to where they want to invest, because according to their interests. And even with that, as somebody and some concerns have been shared about advantage taking, when there is no clear policy and there is no guidance, clear guidance as to what is the right of the locals, what is the right of levels of governments and so on, you will find that an investor will take advantage of locals, because locals are not aware. Take, for example, my community, Pokot. If an investor comes, Pokots do not know how much deposits of gold or any other mineral is in their land. And so an investor will come in and probably invest, and because of the knowledge that he knows, and she knows, or they know, that the community is not aware, the community is not adequately knowledgeable about deposits and so on, such an investor will take advantage of the communities. I give, for example, Simba Cement, which is now beginning a factory in West Pokot, but I'm not seeing any sign of schools built around it, hospitals built around it, roads made in the area, because those were the concerns and priorities of the locals. But with an investor that came probably without much public awareness and public participation, taking of advantage is looming, because the company is probably aware that the community is not really knowledgeable about what is there, and the commitments that should have been made prior to making investments. And then also marketing will be another issue, because if a natural resource is in a place and without the people knowing where it is going to, or what kind of a market and what kind of an investor that is interested to invest and take into the market, you will find that a community may be taken advantage of very largely, because they do not know how much this person is going to sell for, and therefore they are taken advantage with low prices, and yet these people or this person is going to make a huge profit taking advantage of communities where this mineral or natural resource is coming from. And therefore, what I am actually appealing to is the governments to stand on behalf of the communities and make the communities protected, and also make them be part of the process of knowing what is theirs and how much benefit that they will get. I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tabitha Karanja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I rise to support this bill. And Nakuru County, I come from Nakuru County, and Nakuru County is rich with a lot of national resources. But what Senator Boni Arwari has said, it is true. It is like a curse to have a natural resource around your area. And this one I talk when I remember the Mount Longonot, where I know most of you, most of our senators, honorable senators, you've grown to climb Mount Longonot, especially when you are a lot of stress and you want to get rid of your stresses. That is the best place to go. I was just born just few kilometers from Mount Longonot. And it's a sad story, because we were raised up there. It's about 5-acre piece of land, and we used to harvest our food from those 5 acres of land, get educated, and become who we are today. But today it's sad, because they can't even feed themselves. Because the animals around that Mount Longonot, they leave the park and they get to the farmers they get to the shambas of our farmers. They eat their crops and they even kill them. The sad part is the national government collects over 1 billion Kenya shillings just at the gate. The entry at the gate, they collect over 1 billion. If you look at the constitution, we are supposed to be, the county government, Nakuru County government is supposed to be given 25% of that 1 billion Kenya shillings. But today, people are crying, they don't get that, and that is enough money even to refence the fence, because why the animal live is because there is no fence. Go to Lake Nakuru, the same story. If I'm sure all of you visited again Lake Nakuru. It's a very beautiful place. But the people living around it, they don't enjoy it, because the water, when there is no control of the overflow of that water. So people living around that lake, again, they are swept every time the lake gets filled, and there's no compensation. And again, the national government collects over 1 billion Kenya shillings, just the collection at the gate. There are people who are benefiting from these natural resources, especially the national parks. But Nakuru County is not benefiting, and laws should be applied equally. We come again to the geothermal. If you do the research, you'll see 50% of the power used in this country comes from Nakuru County. That is the geothermal. 50% of the power. But even the employment, our people cannot get employment from the geothermal. The national government collects over 3.750 billion every year. If you look at that, you'll see if it's 25%, how much money is supposed to be left at the Nakuru County. But sad now is that if you look at the Natural Resource Benefit Sharing Bill 2020, it does not include geothermal as part of the natural resources to be benefit under the bill. Now, I request this Mugatana bill to include, to be amended, so that it can include geothermal as part of the natural resources. This will give Nakuru County an additional resources of 840 million. So I'll be pushing for that amendment so that our people can benefit of being the people that supply 50% of the power in the country. And the third party also, if you come around Naivasha, where the geothermal is, at night it's dark. So we'll also be pushing to ensure that they also get the power. And even lowering the power. When we talk of lowering the power, Nakuru County should be one of the counties or in the country that should benefit from the lowest power, because they generate that natural resource. And adding to what Dr. Arwari, Senator Arwari has said, being the deputy majority leader of this house, it's also sad to see that it's come to the side of the minority side, they are not in the house. Some of us just came the other day in this house. It's our first time to be in this house. And we enjoy to see people like Akina Urengos, the way the house was vibrant. Today, if you look at it, it is one-sided. So as being the deputy majority leader, I urge our minority side to come to the house. We sit and agree, because the people outside there are watching us and they can see the other side is all empty and they were elected by the Kenyans. So the people who represent, they are saying, where are these people? I'll push and see what is not happening, because what is happening now, I think that vibrant, whatever people like us came to this house hoping to get, and we were always inspired to come into this house so that we also share and contribute, like the way we could see senators like Urengos who are doing to this country, and we thought would come and join hands together, all of us, so that we can push this country to the next level. So there were differences, we will not add, it will only spoil for the people outside this house who are watching and looking at us. Even the international world is watching and looking at this house. This is an upper house where everybody depend and who have hope, a lot of hope into this house on the legislation of laws to ensure that we bring the cost of living down, because we are the ones to support the current government to ensure that the lowering of the cost of living is lowered by the laws that we registered in this house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support the bill. Asante.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
What is your point of order, Senator Gloria?
Mr. Speaker, under our standing order 41 on the issue of quorum, if at any time in the course of proceedings of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, we don't have quorum,
Clerk, please confirm if we have quorum. Clerk, I direct you ring the bell for 10 minutes. Honorable Senators, we will have to adjourn because of lack of quorum. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 41, there being no quorum, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, 8th March 2023 at 2:30 p.m.
And therefore propose to retain the recommendation as the committee has proposed. We can reject it or we can amend it. That should actually come in the debate and towards the end. What I now see is that we have now entered the substantive debate without actually debating the matter. So the procedural matter was...
Is there a way of gazetting that debate starts at this time?
Yes. Yes.
No, I opened the debate. I opened the debate on what they were raising.
Right Honourable Speaker.
And that's what you're doing now.
Right Honourable Speaker, thank you. You had guided that after him we would sort out a few preliminary issues, and I want to thank you. And I would ask the young Honourable Nandalama Fabi to take his seat as I speak. Right Honourable Speaker.